It's finally here. Our Living Tapestries and Bullseye quilts. Are you ready for this? I am. And of course I had to put a spin and a twist on it. Okay, I've been shopping my stash and gathering and ripping and tearing and shopping and picking through so that I can show you how to finally make what is called a bullseye quilt, but there are so many other shapes other than round. You can add doilies. These are leftover pieces from a previous one. They multiply like rabbits. I've been tearing and ripping because my spin is going to be raw, unfiltered, soft, and wonderful. Here is my very favorite bullseye quilt. I think it's the first one I made, and obviously round, soft, wonderful, scrunchy, the perfect weight. I added doilies, all of my favorite colors of fabric, and it's just divine. Raw edges, using vintage doilies, perfectly imperfect, unmatched raw edges, wonky. Here's another example that is made square instead out of like 30s and 40s fabrics. And I love this one. I think this one is either twin or throw size. But as you can see, all of the blocks have raw edges on top, mismatched, perfectly imperfect. Some decorative seams, some hankies, some doilies. Oops, I don't know what's on there. I'm gonna have to give this a little wash. That's a mystery. But every time you wash it, it gets softer and more wonderful. Use all cotton and use a small thread count, not a large weave, because you need these to be able to hold together next to those raw edges. And you will be using a small stitch as well to help hold. Here is one that is ready to have batting and backing and be machine quilted. So it's never been washed. It's ironed and brand new. And there's the back. So you can see what that looks like and how it goes together with a small band of border and then a wide border. Contrasting colors. I love pinks and browns, pink and blue, pink and green. So you'll be able to see that throughout. Here's an example of some leftover blocks so that you can see how mismatched they are when they come together. The only place that they match up is in the very middle, because one block consists of 4 blocks that were made, divided into 4 in the centers, and then mixed and matched and gathered together in new blocks. Here's one that shows how they are joined together side by side for a quilt. So the very centers and the edges are the only places that match up. And I'm going to be showing you my spin on it, very raw. And I call it the law of averages, and it all comes out. So unlike a lot of other quilts, there are very few points that you have to match perfectly. So this is an example of a very loose weave fabric that I would not recommend. I would recommend a very quality cotton quilting fabric. But also if you sew with a smaller stitch length, that will help if you are wanting to use a looser weave like I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be making a very scrappy one. Here are examples of what's left over when you get done. It breeds like rabbits. So you have a bunch of pieces left to do all kinds of other fun stuff with, including little yo-yos if you want to, or making more and more and more and more. So there's a block pieced back together, and here's my new stash of what I have in mind for my spin on this Bullseye quilt. I really want raw edges, so I've been tearing 4-inch squares, 6-inch squares, 8-inch squares, and 10-inch squares. I snip at the measurement and then tear. So I'm really going to be leaving all of my edges raw, unlike the quilt blocks where the outside edges are joined properly. But all of mine are going to be raw and on top as an alternative, and I'm going to make a table runner with 4 blocks. So I went through my fabric. I tried to be more subtle, more monotone. I really had to force myself to not choose any pink. So I have browns. Oh, there's a little bit of pink there in the next one. But mostly brown, natural colors, neutral colors, and my favorite fabric with the blue little flowers. Favorite. So I have prepared way too many pieces, but I will definitely use them. And I always keep the scraps that I tear off. They will always be used in other wonderful scrappy things like junk journals, all kinds of wonderful projects. So I'm thinking about layering up squares and where I'm going to sew. And after you sew, you go to the back and you cut out the back layer so it doesn't get bulky, and I will be showing you that. So a 10-inch square, an 8-inch square, 6 and 4. Aren't they beautiful already? And I'm going to be joining squares and circular doilies. And I am using some looser fabric weaves, and it's going to be fine. My table runner, I will not be washing. So this is where I'm showing you the 3 templates where you take your squares that you have cut, fold them in half and then half again, and then use a template and cut along the edge to make those circles, which is how you end up with those wonderfully wonky, scrappy edges. So here I'm going to start layering up and pretend to show you how we're going to be cutting them up into quarters, but don't cut yet. Don't cut yet. I'm just showing you how they're going to end up being quartered and mixing up 4 completely different pieces like that. Square, round, hearts, floral, diamond. You can do all kinds of different shapes. So the edges don't join up. Do you see how wonky it is? Only the center, and then only the outside edges as you join the blocks. And we always use a 1/4-inch seam. So if you're figuring out what size you want, you have to do the math for whatever size of quilt or throw you want. So layering up, choosing contrasting pieces, And it would be beautiful to do one in all neutrals that didn't really have contrasting lights and darks. It would just be beautiful. Absolutely. I'm even using a very loose, very loose weave piece of old curtain lace. I realize that if you are a very precise seamstress or quilt maker, this might be making you a little bit crazy, but stick with me. It's going to work. I promise. I promise it's going to work out. I know you probably have everything ironed and no raw edges and everything cut exactly to size, but this is going to be perfectly imperfect, wonderfully scrappy and raw and soft and fun. I'm not sure yet which pieces I'm going to use. Some of them are a little bit too busy. It depends. But I do love a lot of texture. And I pulled way too many pieces out of my stash and tore way too many, but they will always be useful in another project, whatever is left over. So here we go. Yummy, yummy. Here are some other examples of some that I have put together. Delicious. So here we go, layering up. So I sped up the video so this wouldn't take forever. I'm folding things in quarters and marking little fingernail press quarter marks so I can line things up sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I just eyeball it, and I'm going to start layering up. Sewing them on. You could use a zigzag. You can use any color of thread you want. I'm using a variegated kind of tan, pretty brown color. So you turn it to the back, make sure you're not snipping the front, and you cut the back out, leaving at least 1/4 of an inch or more. Layer up again, center it, eyeball it if you want because it's meant to be wonky, and sew it onto the top. And then turn it to the back, pull the layers apart, make a tiny little snip, cut the back layer out, and this is what I mean by how it multiplies like rabbits, because instead of letting them get bulky and heavy and hard to deal with, you make them a nice thin weight, easier to cut through and layer up later. But then you have all of these wonderful scraps left to use again. And there's one, and here comes another one. So again, I am joining squares and circles. Nothing is ironed. Most of my fabric is washed and scrunchy and crunchy and soft. Making sure you don't cut through both layers, and also always be sure you turn it to the back. It has happened again and again and again that a top piece has been sewn on and then the top piece is cut out. Don't do that. Turn it to the back, turn it to the back, turn it to the back. So these are the basic steps of making this quilt, whether it's called Bullseye or whatever shape you decide, whatever fabric you decide, colorway, neutrals, bold and bright, super contrast, perfectly perfect. Mine will be perfectly imperfect because that's how I roll, and I can't wait to use this for a table runner, raw, soft, and wonderful. So I'm just going to be putting 4 blocks together. And there's the last little layer, and there's another wonderful scrap There's some scraps. One time a while back, a couple months ago, I was having a fun sewing day with some friends and having such a ball and creating this wonderful something I wasn't sure yet. I was trying to recreate an acid washed quilt that I saw one time in Norway, and I was sewing cheesecloth and book pages and all kinds of fun stuff together into a kind of a master sheet type thing. And I was having so much fun and just chatting away, and I sewed right through my index finger, through the fingernail and out the side. And thankfully it came right back out. It went clunk, clunk, clunk. And then all of a sudden my finger was torn up, and I said, I think I just sewed through my finger. Sure enough, I had. The needle broke, and thankfully it had come out. It was not in my finger, so please be careful as you sew and as you snip and cut. Isn't that beautiful? And it has healed perfectly. I'm so amazed. One of my friends was absolutely a true mom. Before I could even blink, she was at my side with the Band-Aid. But anyway, it all worked out. Just be careful. Turn it to, see, I almost cut in the front. Turn it to the back, turn it to the back. It becomes kind of, you do it so much, you almost aren't thinking about it. So there's my growing pile of beautiful scraps. What do you think so far? Do you think it's going to work? It is so wonderful. I also was thinking this would be really fun for scrapbooking, junk journal covers, altered book covers, slow stitching journal covers. So that's different, right? It's see-through. It's going to work. It's going to come out perfectly fine. I think this is the last one. It's going to be time to start dividing them up. Let's go over to the cutting table. So I have 4 squares. Aren't they fun? Fun, fun, fun. I didn't really plan. You could drive yourself crazy with planning, even when you start to piece them together. So I'm using that law of averages on the cutting mat because they're not square. But try to center it. And then find the center. That was at 5 inches since the back square was 10. And quarter them. And then we will mix them up. And it's going to be so fun and so beautiful. Have you ever made a bullseye quilt or anything like this? Are you going to make one? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to use rotary cutter, rotary mat, and ruler safety as well, because a lot of things can happen there as well. So keep thoughtful, close your rotary blade. Be sure you're not setting it down open. And here we are with mixed up quarters, ready to start to put them together. And you can drive yourself crazy, especially when you're doing a really big quilt, and worry about matching them up just right, but it's not going to matter. So here we go, first block. And after this, I'm going to speed up the video for you. And I promise I don't sew through my finger and cause a gruesome scene in this project. So just trying to match up the very centers. Be sure you don't sew together the outside edges, sew only the centers together. And if you're a really sharp quilter, you can do this whole long chain of pieces, halves, being put together like this, and then go back and snip them apart and start to join holes. So the only thing we have to line up is the very center, and I finger press one seam under one way and the other seam under the other way. And I could have really fussed and worried about how those sides lined up, matched up as far as contrasting darks and lights, but it's going to be okay. So finger pressing opposite ways there in the center, and that way we get this perfect little lock right there at the center seam, and you could pin and you could iron, but I don't, and it's going to be fine. I know it doesn't look like it's going to be fine. It might look like a horrible mess to you if you're a very precise quilter. But just like in a lot of art courses and fun challenges online and altered bookmaking and junk journaling, etc., it seems like everyone is saying, let go, relax, let things be less than perfect, let things be kind of wonky and wonderful. So give it a try. I think you'll like it. I sure do. That might be making you crazy. Fingers crossed, I promise, really. The law of averages is going to make it come out perfectly. Perfectly wonky, perfectly wild, raw, and wonderful, and imperfect. So here we go, putting another one together, finger pressing, joining up the little locking center, the only place that needs to be lined up right now. And then pulling taut from the center out to the edges. Even though they don't match up, that's where we go from. Tell me in the comments if this was making you crazy, if you are a precise quilter. So here's a little trick that you can do. You can start your sewing seams with the little scrap instead of having a whole bunch of pieces of thread left. And also that way your seam is started and your machine doesn't get all clunky trying to start a seam. So every time you end a seam, you add that little starter. I don't know what those are called. Stoppers and starters. So you actually need two. One where you left off, and then another one where you are going to leave off at the end of your seam. And that way you're saving thread and you're not worrying about pulling thread out and making sure your seam starts again without clunking the machine along. It's already on its way, just like joining blocks. So I try it. I've tried it. I don't think it's for me, and I'll just keep my threads because now there are really fun, wonderful ways that people are using all of the leftover thread. It's really fun, and I could show you that in another video. So which block are we on? Finger pressing, joining up the little locking center seam, pulling from the center taut out to the starting seam edge. And then I realize if I need to cut that in half so I can have the second one. But it's really snipping close to the edge of the thing on the machine, and there's my center seam. So if you're a precise quilter, you know that there's an exactly perfect way for pressing those seams one way and then the other, and every single block is interlocking that way. I don't know that. I know it's possible, but I've never done it. It's probably easy peasy, but I'm not a precise quilter. And the Bullseye quilt is my very favorite for this very reason. And this table runner is going to be even more wonky and wonderful than a Bullseye quilt. And here we go. here are the 4 blocks, and I'm looking through my doilies and lace and table runners and dresser scarves and things to see if I want to sew it onto something. And I really liked this, but not very much. And then I coffee dyed it with some leftover coffee, which really made it pretty and made it blend better, but I still didn't like it. So then I decided I was going to do a thin, dark border and a wider, my favorite little blue floral border that's already part of the blocks. And I went and I tore some strips, and you will not believe, I promise, I did not measure. You will not believe what happens. So I'm deciding how I'm going to join these, and I decide that I'm going to overlap them just 1/4 of an inch or the width of the sewing machine foot, and then I'm going to use a large zigzag and join them with the raw edge on top. And you could do, and that's how you would join them if you were doing a regular quilt. You would do it underneath with a 1/4 inch seam. But here we go with a 1/4 inch overlap, raw edge on top for the 4 blocks. A large zigzag, a wide and long stitch length zigzag. You could do any decorative stitch you want. You could do any color of thread you want. Or you could join them the proper way if you are a precise quilter, but that's not me, and they don't even line up exactly, as you can see. But again, the law of averages is going to make this work out wonderfully. So I'm going to join all 4. I think after this I speed it up for you. Let me know if you just love it or you just cannot stand this wonderfully wonky, scrappy style. I totally understand that, and that's what makes the world go around. Oops, I almost tried to match them up and do the proper seam, but I'm overlapping, and here we go, sped up so I can save you some time. My machine sounds funny in high speed. One more. And then we will move on to the dark, thin border, and then a wider, wonderful, little blue floral fabric border. What are you thinking? Do you have all kinds of fun ideas for what you're going to make and how you're going to make it and make it different? Which shape? Square, round, a mix, floral, diamonds, hearts. I'll show you a heart one I did. It's at the end of the video here. So here are the 4 blocks joined together, and it looks kind of crazy with those loosey-goosey raw edges. Here's my strip. I literally took some fabric and tore, I think that was a 1-inch strip. And I'm overlapping it about 1/4 of an inch, and you will not believe what happens right at the end. I did not measure this. I just thought I would overlap raw ends as I needed. So serendipitous, fun, scrappy, perfectly imperfect. So I started with the first block overlapping about the width of the sewing machine foot. That's usually how I measure, is from the seam to the edge of the sewing machine foot. And I held it out and covered up the seam, and then that much that I needed to grab to cover the next block. And amazingly, that law of averages comes out wonderfully. Not perfectly, but all the way down the edge. And look at that. I did not measure that. Can you believe that? I just went shopping through my shelves, my stash, to find a nice dark antique brown with some pretty blue in it and ripped some strips off. I ripped too many, and I'm still using the large wide zigzag, and there's the two long edges, and here we go again with, it's a tiny bit short, but it's going to be okay. It's going to work out fine. Perfectly fine. What decorative stitch would you use? What color would you use? Wouldn't this be fun? You could do smaller blocks or 2 blocks to make a wonderful book cover for a junk journal, a slow stitching scrappy journal. What else? Placemats, a cute tote. Anyway, the sky is the limit. There are no rules, just right. It could have a layer of batting underneath it if you wanted, and a backing, but I think it's going to be fine just as a table runner on the table. Our reclaimed old dark wood long farmhouse dining table. I may or may not clean up all of the threads. Oh, and here's where I literally had a mess with my phone on this funny gimbal tripod. It's super flimsy. So sorry about that. That was kind of funny. Got set back up, found my way, stabilized, and here we go. So you can see that one side is short, but it's going to work out. The law of averages. It might as well be fun, right? And wonderful. And unique. My machine has about 60 different decorative stitches. I could have done something else, and that might have been nice with the dark brown thread, but I didn't change anything, and I think it'll be fun the way it is. What do you think? Are you going to make one? Here we come with the really fun, vintagey little blue flower, and it looks kind of like a coffee dyed or tea dyed fabric. It's just wonderful. I have yards and yards and yards because I bought the end of the bolt when my favorite quilt shop was closing. So again, I will not be putting this through a washing machine. If I need to wash it, I will hand wash and hand dry it because of the loose edges and the larger zigzag seam. It's all joined well. I just don't think it would handle. Save your thread. People are making amazing things with leftover thread, really fun bright colors, and using fusible webbing that washes away. You could, again, the sky is the limit. Save your threads and your fun strings and yarns and scraps, and you could make such fun things. Your own laces. You use your leftover threads and strings and fibers from Fiber Arts and glue if you want. Add them onto some fusible, you know what I mean? And it's the kind that washes away when you're done. And then you have left some wonderful thing that you made. Here I'm having to rethread the machine. My thread broke. My nice cotton variegated pretty browns ready to go again. I might go ahead and hand wash it gently because all of the raw edges are so much more fun when they're frayed and soft. I might tumble it in the dryer really gently just to make it all really wonderful, but not much at all. Very delicate and very gentle because of the nature of this project. So using that 1/4 inch-ish overlap, the law of averages, being sure everything is being caught up under, sewn together, not too far, just enough. My zigzag stitches are not exactly the same all the way around, but again, it's scrappy and perfectly imperfect. I wasn't really sure for quite a while, maybe even a couple days, how to put this together. I kept looking in my stash of laces and linens and doilies, dresser scarves and things like that, but nothing just seemed right, and I just had to kind of wait and think about it and look through my stash, and I really like how this came together. What do you think? Here I'm showing keeping your selvages that you tear off because they have really fun, cute things on them to use, and all kinds of scrappy things like junk journals and altered books, etc. So here's kind of just laying it out really quick on our big old farm reclaimed wood table, which is where it will probably end up after I gently wash and dry it. What do you think? Perfectly imperfect, scrappy, shabby, handmade. Favorite fabrics and textiles, linens. Wouldn't it make a beautiful whole quilt? Although that would need to be washable and dryable. You can really stabilize things a lot as you hand quilt one of these, or machine quilt one of these quilts. There are all kinds of fun options. The sky is the limit. There's no wrong. There's no perfectly right. I might worry about all the loose threads or not. What do you think? So here are some others I've made. Ready to bind, ready to machine quilt. This one I made for our anniversary. I think it was our 25th. It's just a wonderful, fun project. Layering, enjoying your favorite colors and fabrics, mixing and matching and coming up with this delightful, scrappy, shabby quilt, throw, or any size you would like, or a table runner, or placemats. What are your thoughts? What would you make? So here's the one that is made into hearts. That was fun. That one sold pretty quick, and it's also fun to make a scrappy backing using up fabrics that you want to just do that with. This is my favorite. Here we are back at the start, picking, shopping, choosing, deciding, planning on the next bullseye or whatever shape you want to make it. Colorful, bright, dark, or all neutrals would be absolutely gorgeous. And there's the beginning, the planning. Let me know what you think. Please like, share, subscribe, and be ready for more. This is something I would love to do very soon. In our area, there's a bunch of Buddhist prayer flags everywhere, and I love making these. And these are an alternative made out of wonderful old linens, tablecloths, laces, fabrics, and I love putting words on them that are of my faith. What do you think? So let me know if you would like to make these prayer flags as one of the next projects in Our Living Tapestries. They're super fun, easy, and beautiful and scrappy. So let me know, and thank you for joining me for this free tutorial. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and be ready for more. Too much clutter? Longing to make something beautiful without spending a thing? I'll show you how to turn what you already have into timeless treasures. Create new out of old, heirlooms to love and to give. Join me, Jynene at Lost Arts, for Our Living Tapestries.